Hey fans and subscribers, this is your host Joe with a video on Ayaneo 2, the beta that has recently released as of July 2023, end of July 2023. So before we get started with looking at Ayaneo 2 on the Ayaneo 2S that I have here in front of me, I want to show you where you can download this. This is from the Ayaneo support website, and specifically under download, and also looking under software and driver download, you see on the left top row Ayaneo 2.0. Downloading this file will allow you then to go through the prompts to install. And for me, I uninstalled Ayaneo version 1. My Ayaneo 2S came with Ayaneo 1, our desktop here, to look at first the overlay. I press the M button and we have the overlay here, and there are different areas where you can access. So for example, this area in here is going to be performance. We then, with direction down, we have handheld options, we have controller, we have quick assistant, and we also have setup. Or excuse me, system. Let's start at the top with performance. Beneath performance, we have the different modes that you can select. So for example, we have AAA game, we have normal game, we have retro game, and PC Office. This is where it gets interesting, because with Ayaneo 1, we were particular on trying to find that right TDP limit for the AMD 7840U to perform so that we can get a targeted frame rate and have the maximum amount of battery life. So for example, the idea may have been for some people, oh, I need 33 watts to be able to get the maximum frame rate that I want. But depending on what you want to do, which may be a certain target zone for your frame rate, you don't need to squeeze all of that wattage and have a maximum TDP limit. So let's start with the AAA game mode. You can select that with A, and these can be further customized as well, but this is just the overlay that we are looking at here. So with the AAA game mode, you can see the CPU usage, temperatures, GPU usage, temperature, fan, the RPM of the fan, and then the present wattage that is being used with, in this case, smart TDP. However, I'm going to talk about that more in a moment. And then you can see the maximum battery that is being drawn here, minus 13 watts. So that's taking that off of my battery. And my battery presently is 62%. So let's scroll down. We have FPS limit. For my AAA games, I am going to target 60, generally speaking. Now, if I want to maximize my battery, I'm going to decrease that. And this is what I was mentioning where it gets interesting. Instead of trying to find where I want to have the TDP, and in this case, I had smart TDP enabled, but I would have to reboot that. So let me not do that right now since I'm doing this video. But with smart TDP, which is all the way to the right, what this means is that the software is going to determine what the optimal TDP usage is to target that frame rate. So it's going to change if we go back up to FPS limit, and I have mine in 60, but let's say I'm on the go and I want to maximize the amount of battery I have, and I am comfortable settling for 40 frames. In the game, I'm going to see a lower TDP because I'm not trying to target a range that's higher, like 60 compared to 40. And that's where smart TDP is really going to help us with that. So it's no longer a guessing game or a case where I have to experiment with, okay, well, if I want to target 40, should I go with 15 watt? Should I go with 9 watt? I'm not really sure. The smart TDP software is going to determine that for us. And in a game that I have played thus far, Dead Island 2, I've seen that TDP adjust depending on what is happening in the game. So combat zones, for example, I'm going to see a higher TDP usage compared to walking around, for example, and trying to target that 60 frames. So that is my explanation with the Smart TDP and the FPS limit. Moving down, we have performance overlay. You have two options here for performance overlay, and I'm currently using FPS Thunder. You may notice on the top of my screen, you have the performance overlay here, and you can see the FPS, which it's not showing a number right now because I'm not in a game, but CPU usage, CPU wattage, and or current wattage being used. You have the temperature. The information that was shown up here is going to be shown on the overlay, which is very helpful because if I hit the M button again and minimize the overlay, the side overlay, then I can still see the numbers, the stats that I want to see. So the current options are FPS Thunder and RTS. I can turn performance overlay off. I can switch to RTS if I want to, or I could go to FPS Thunder, which comes up. And you have for FPS Thunder, through the side overlay here, you have different formats. So simple, which I have selected, horizontal, and I'm just pressing A and using direction pad to do this. So as you can see, there was a change here that occurred. You have vertical as well. And even though I have these icons here, you can see that the perspective has changed to vertical on that side. And you can also edit as well the values that you see. So for example, if I go in here and I'm selected on FPS Thunder, I can go to this pencil with the 3 horizontal line. I can select that and I can actually choose what I want to see. I don't have all of the options selected, but I could have them. I could look at SSD stats. I could look at power stats. I could look at internet speed stats, depending on how much I want to see. So customize this to your liking if you prefer to do so. So we can go then back to the overlay. Scrolling down, we have our fan configuration. And right now I have hardware control selected. This is where the BIOS settings are referred to for where the fan should be depending on the temperature of the device. But I could switch this to software control very easily. You hear that my fans are spinning up. And there are different options here. Right now, this is at max. So you hear a higher RPM for the fan, and the fan is going at a higher RPM. But we can select mute, for example, if we want. So you hear the fans, they went completely off. We can then select balance. We can also select custom as well, and we will look more at that. And we can select 100% as well. So you hear the fans, or the fan rather. So we'll go back to where I had it at hardware control. And we can then go to, we can select the pencil. And here we have more options on the fan. So we have fan hardware control. I selected there that using A. And so let's say I go to software control. So we can change the RPM configuration. So let's say we want to go to custom. Here we are, we have a different RPM mode. So ladder mode is going to look in this way, where it's a diagonal line. Whereas if we go to linear mode, we see it looks like a ladder in a sense, or steps, I should say, more like steps. So we will return to the overlay where I was, and I'm going to go back into my hardware control since I prefer that. Next, we're going to scroll down to handheld options. We have our brightness here. We have our volume, our airplane mode. So that is going to disconnect all radio frequencies. That includes Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. We can disable, enable Bluetooth, disable, enable Wi-Fi. We can also mute the device. And this option is very helpful. So if I just have my device here on a dock and I want to install a game and I don't have a HDMI or connected to another monitor, then what I can do is I can go to this option down here, and while the game is downloading, instead of the device remaining on, I can keep it on charge, and I can hit this button, the play button, and the device remains on. It doesn't boot down, but the screen is just off. And if I want to wake the device, I just press A, I get a vibration, and it comes right back on. Moving down to controller, we can then adjust our vibration here, and I have mine on medium, but you could turn it off completely if you would like, and I'm just using the A button and direction pad to select that. We have our analog trigger. We can adjust our sensitivity there, so I have mine at 100%. You can also reset that if you would like. We have our joystick options. We have sensitivity and dead zone. Now, I am on the Ayaneo 2S, so I do have the master control functionality, which allows me to enable, disable dead zone. And so here I have mine on off, but by default, this was on the setting for on. Moving down to custom, I can select whether I want to have the Japanese control layout, which is going to be similar to your PlayStation controller, or the normal layout. We have gyro adjustment that can be enabled or disabled. We have our RPG mode, and this is where it could be a little fun. I'm using the radar effect right now with the spinning red. I really like that. And just so you know, there are ways to go in and customize this more, but this is just the quick overlay that we're looking at right now. We can adjust brightness for the lights. So we can scroll this. I'm using direction pads. We can go all the way down. So it's not very, you saw the brightness change there. We can go all the way back up, select with A, brightness returns. And here is where we can customize, and we can also disable the controller. So if you are using a Xbox controller paired by Bluetooth or connected by USB, we can customize this further. Here we can select whether we want the A button to be off, semi-automatic, or fully automatic as well with our other controls, and then we can reset those if we would like to do that. Let's next transition to Quick Assistant. What we can do is we can select Add More, and we can then, let's say we want to add Close Game. So we can add Close Game, and we can add Wi-Fi, and then we select Accept. And okay, in this case, they did return, so that's great. So just make sure that you hit the Accept button down here instead of the B button. But if you don't see these come on to the Quick Assistant immediately, then my recommendation would just be to reboot the device or close out ASpace 2 and then go back into it, and these will return. So do keep in mind we are working with the beta here. Scrolling next to the system, we have system options, frequently asked questions, check for updates, which is very helpful. So we can select A, and as you can see, no update. We can look at system settings, for example, and we're going to go through these menus here on the side. So I'll go back here. And frequently asked questions, we have Task Manager, we have Device Manager, Control Panel. This is really nice that these options are provided here to quickly access, so I don't have to go to the Start menu and type that in, for example. So File Manager, Window Settings, and Display Settings are also provided here. So now that we've gone through this, I'm actually going to go back to FPS Thunder and go back to the simple because I want you to see the options on the side. If we hold down the M button, we actually go into further the software here. And upon holding down the M button, you go right to home, which is where your games are going to be. So let's look at games. These are the ones that I have installed here, and they will just go in a rotation. So it's infinite here. As you can see, you're going to go back to the same ones. You have high marks will play, high score must play. So these are the games again, and maybe in a different order. Though there's one I had to customize, the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the reason I had to customize this is that the cloud sync that the software uses to find the metadata for the game did not immediately find this one. So you may find that with other games. I've at least found it with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but not to worry if that is the case, because you can go to options. I'm just using direction pad or the joystick here. You can go to options, you can go to data modification, selecting A here, and you can type the name, you can describe the game if you would like, you can add a label to the game if you would like. Though here is where you can customize the game logo, the game cover, and the game background. I have found that selecting these options does not automatically synchronize with the game, so do be patient with selecting these. You may have to just go in and select it again because it may not apply, but do make sure that you select save and hit that with A, and so you will have the metadata that you want here for your game. Going back to options here, you can actually, if you want to search for the game, you can search for it. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I do have some Valhalla games that come up, but not Assassin's Creed. Oh, actually, well, look, Assassin's Creed Valhalla did come up. That was not what was there last time, so they must be updating this. However, it's good that I at least showed that there. So there's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We saved that. What a great way to demo that. So we can go back here. We can go back to options. We can delete the game. We can remove it from library as well. We can launch the game from here if we would like. And then if we scroll down, we can actually look at video and art wall. I do know that there is a way you can take a screenshot through the software. So right here, I have, did not apply in here, so let me go back. You can actually screenshot, there it is right there. So select accept, and I can take a screenshot within the game. So I just went through the quick assistant to do that, though I will return here. Next, let's go to this overlay here on the side. We have settings, we have new, we have game management, and frequently asked questions. Let's go to settings. So this is where the fun begins with the ASpace 2. And here we have general information. This is going to be on, this is registered to the account that I have set up. We then can transition to performance. And this is where we can go through our different modes. So AAA, normal game, retro game. I'm just using A to select PC Office. And you can actually create a new preset if you would like. If you are dissatisfied or just want an additional preset here. So let's go back to our AAA game. And as you can see, I have the 60 frame target, I have the smart TDP, and I would have to reboot if I were to change the device out of smart. Power policy I have set to high, but you may want that to be in saving as well. Our fan configuration is going to be hardware control. And then you also have a CPU turbo option if you want those clock speeds to be higher in the mode that you are in. Let's go down to monitor. And this is where we have the option between the FPS Thunder and the RTSS as well, and you can enable that here. And these are the third-party dependencies here. There's our RTSS, which is installed. Our startup and optimization. This is where we can disable this if we want if we want GPU scaling, default USB behavior, on-screen keyboard. If we want that to be done at startup, then or rather, if we want that functionality at startup, then we will have that enabled as well. And you can disable mouse mode as well. Bluetooth, if we want to pair a controller, that would be done here. We would enable Bluetooth and we would select add. Next is our network settings. So if you are using Wi-Fi, then you will enable that here, and then you can then select the networks that you would like to connect to, rather the network you would like to connect to. Though the idea here is that you can change these values if you would like. And here's the light mode if you rather use the light mode. And you can actually reset this if you would like just by pressing A. Going down to general, we have our language, our server, our time zone, and our date, and that can be cleaned if you would like to do that. With Windows, we can sort the menu if you would like. So we have our handheld, master controller, quick assistant, and system in that order. We then have our controller, and this is the master controller options here. So we have our joystick, we have custom, and I showed this earlier in the side overlay, so that's why I'm just moving through this here. Our left trigger and right trigger sensitivity, our auto here, we have our gyro here, we have vibration as well, and we can actually correct, this was on ASpace 1, we can correct or recalibrate rather the joystick buttons by pressing left bumper, right bumper, D-pad, and B key. All of those keys combined to be able to do that. We then have our quick open, and this is if you are using a controller. We have our, this is the lower hand button here, and that will go right to the desktop, but we can customize that. We can do screenshot, escape, open Steam, that may be preferred. We can run a script, open a program, key combination as well if we would like to put in a macro. I'll go back to show desktop. And for our key combination, if you want, for example, 1, 1, actually will not let you duplicate the same button over again. But here we are just doing 1, 2, 3, 4. If you would like, this can be customized to your liking, so we can save and apply or delete that. If I wanted to save and apply, then I would hold down the 3 horizontal line, this button here, to be able to do that. So there, I'm actually going to go back, show desktop. That's what it is at default. You can also reset this if you would like, selecting this button here. Yeah, that, use the direction pad and then press A if you would like to do that. Moving forward here, we have our lighting effect. So I mentioned mine is at radar. So we have our other options here. So here is the Google Breathe, which is really cool. And we can set the brightness for that. We have RGB Breathe if we would like. And we can go to default as well. We can select our color here if we would like to change that, though I'm going to go back to radar. I really like that one. We also have our custom shoulder key, and here, so short press and long press, the keys are here where my thumbs are, so left side and right side. Move my controller slightly, there we go. And we can then select, so this would be a short press here for keyboard. So we can actually do that. So the keyboard comes up, there's an example there. Next, we have our storage, and we can just look at the general information. If there is a secure digital card, that is going to show up here as well. Next, we have our notice area here. So I'm using the joystick to select that. There are no notices that you can look at. And then we have settings to go back into the settings that we just looked at. This is really nice, where if we want to minimize, exit, hibernate, restart, or power off, we can do that. So going back to the side overlay, we looked at settings. We can select new, and we see the updated content and what was fixed. Just select B there. We can then select game management, and this is where you can add a game. And if I select A, I can do a scan for games, or I can do a manual addition depending on if it shows up or does not show up. We can uninstall games as well. Long press to uninstall, horizontal button there, and we just would need to select the game, for example. And that would be by pressing X to do that. We next can go to unknown game management. So if we need to add a game, we can do that from these programs here. So there's one game, for example, but that one's already added. That's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Our frequently asked questions. That's just going to load a FAQ page. So more information here on that. And then we also have power again. And that is an introduction to iSpace 2. I hope this helps you with the iSpace 2 beta. So let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts? Are you enjoying this? Are you using Smart TDP to look at what your TDP usage is for game, for targeting the frame rate of choice? Are you setting your own profiles? It's very exciting that Ayaneo has released this software, and very much looking forward to continuing using it. The channel is going to have more videos on using the Smart TDP with different games, so subscribe to the channel if you have not, so that you can be updated promptly on when those videos are released. If you are looking for any other Ayaneo content on the channel, do express in the comments what you are looking for, and I will put together a video on that, especially for that. Thank you again for watching, and in the words of Commander Shepard from Mass Effect, I should go.